I remember the house before I remember fear. It was small and old with walls that breathed at night and a wooden floor that sang whenever someone crossed it. The day my parents left me alone started like any other summer morning, sunlight spilling through thin curtains, the smell of tea and toast, the radio murmuring news. In another room my mother was nervous. I could hear it in how she packed my lunch. Even though it was a day I would stay home, my father kept checking his watch and telling me they would be back before evening. They said I was old enough to stay alone. They said, do not open the door to anyone, do not go outside, do not touch the stove, and do not be afraid. I nodded because I wanted to be brave and because staying home alone felt like a secret promotion into the adult world. When the door closed behind them, the house seemed to pause as if listening. The lock clicked and their footsteps faded down the street. Then silence fell so thick it pressed against my ears. I walked from room to room, touching the walls and furniture as if greeting old friends. The clock in the living room ticked loudly, each tick sounding like a footstep that never arrived. I turned on the television to fill the quiet. Cartoons danced and laughed, and for a while I forgot that I was alone. Around midday the air changed, the light dimmed though the sun was still high, and a breeze pushed against the windows making them whisper. I felt watched, not by eyes but by the house itself, by its corners and shadows that leaned closer. When I looked away I shook it off and went to the kitchen to make a sandwich. The fridge hummed like a distant voice, and when I closed it I heard something else, a soft thud from upstairs. My room was upstairs. The steps creaked as I climbed, each one louder than the last. Halfway up I stopped because I heard breathing, not mine, slow and uneven. I held my breath and listened. The sound stopped too. I told myself it was just the house settling, just the pipes and wood playing tricks, but my hands were shaking when I reached the landing. The door to my parents' room was open. It had been closed earlier, I was sure of it. The hallway felt colder. There was a smell I could not place, like dust and old clothes. I took one step closer and the floorboard groaned inside the room. Something moved, a rustle like fabric against skin. I whispered hello and hated how small my voice sounded. No answer came, but the rustling stopped as if whatever it was had turned to listen. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the clock downstairs. I went back to the living room and sat as close to the television as I could. The cartoons were over, replaced by a quiet program with people talking calmly. Their voices could not calm me anymore. Every few minutes I glanced at the staircase, expecting to see someone standing there. Then the phone rang. I jumped so hard I nearly fell off the couch. I stared at the phone for a long moment before answering. My mother asked if I was fine. I said yes too quickly. She asked if everything was quiet. I said yes again, even though another thud sounded upstairs. As if to disagree, she told me they would be home soon and that I should lock the door if I heard anyone outside. When I hung up the phone, the house felt angrier, as if it knew I had spoken about it. The afternoon stretched on. Shadows grew long across the floor and the ticking clock sounded faster. I tried to read, but the words swam on the page. Then I heard footsteps, not the imagined kind but real, measured steps coming from upstairs, moving toward the stairs. I froze. The steps stopped at the top of the staircase. A moment passed, then another, then the first step creaked. I screamed without meaning to, and the steps stopped again. Silence returned, heavy and mocking. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a metal flashlight, and held it like a weapon. The second step creaked, then the third. Whatever was coming down the stairs was slow, as if savoring my fear. I shouted that my parents would be home soon. My voice cracked and echoed. The steps paused, then began again, faster now. I ran to the front door. My hands fumbled with the lock, and in my panic I dropped the keys. They skittered across the floor behind me. I could hear the steps reaching the bottom now. Something brushed against the banister with a dry scraping sound. I turned just as the living room light flickered and went out, plunging half the room into shadow. In that shadow stood a shape taller than me, too thin and wrong, like a person stretched by a bad dream. I could not see its face, but I could feel its attention pressing on me. My vision blurred and I thought I would faint. Then the front door burst open, light flooded in and the shape vanished like smoke. My parents rushed in calling my name. I collapsed into my mother's arms sobbing. They searched the house from top to bottom finding nothing. Every door was closed, every room empty. They told me I had imagined it, that being alone had scared me. They laughed gently and tried to make it sound small. That night I slept in their bed and dreamed of footsteps that never reached me. In the morning I found my keys under the couch where I had not been near, and deep grooves on the banister as if something had dragged long nails across it. My parents said it must have been there before, but I had lived in that house all my life and I knew it had not. Years passed and we moved away, but sometimes when I am alone I hear a familiar breathing just behind me, slow and uneven, and I know the house did not let me go, it simply learned how to follow.